Welcome to the Beauty Business Strategies Podcast, where we give salon, spa, and med spa owners quick tips to make more money, inspire your team, and create world-class client experiences.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beauty Business Strategies Podcast. As usual, I am your host, Michael Yost, hanging out with you guys today. Today we've got a great owner guest as a part of our podcast today, and someone we've had on a podcast before, but we always love bringing back great content, great leaders, great people in general. So we are proud to welcome back Shelby Tarleton. Shelby, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So like I said, you have been on our podcast before, which is awesome. And, you've got a podcast yourself. So as we were just talking off, I'm a little bit, Shelby's way ahead of me in terms of podcast amounts. So I'm just going to try and follow in her shoes. I'm going to let her guide this whole ship today, and we'll see where we end up. I'm sure it's going to be someplace awesome. But that being said, for those that might not be familiar with Shelby, I always love to give everyone, let them introduce themselves. So again, we got the podcast, you got a business, you got a school, you got all kind of things going on. Summarize for our listeners where you got your hands and your feet and everything. What do you get yourself involved with?
So I'm in Austin, Texas. I have a salon, a lash salon specifically, and a lash school. So we license people here in Texas. And I have a podcast called Lash Boss Radio, as well as I just threw my first in-person conference called Lash Boss Summit about a month ago. So all lash stuff. I'm a lash industry advocate.
There we go. That's awesome. And, I think what's awesome about it is it doesn't matter what part of the industry you're in, when you have something that not only do we have a business started from a solo standpoint, right? So we got a business, doing a school, decided why not do this whole podcast thing? And, oh, by the way, I want to do a conference, all that adds up to someone that we should be talking to and listening to, because there's a great deal of knowledge and a great deal that we can talk about and share. And I think that's where we want to start is, setting this up. You give you a little bit of the behind the scenes, setting this up. My simple question to Shelby is, tell me what you're passionate about, because I like to talk to people about what they are passionate about. And Shelby, what was your response to that question?
I just shared that I think it's become there's been a lot of buzz around salon ownership being the hardest route, not worth it. Like, don't do it if you're not already doing it. And I think it's very easy to feel that way if you're in a bad spot, or if you're doing things that puts you in a bad spot. But as someone who's been there and then come out the other side, I kind of want to change the narrative a little bit and just share how it could look if you just change a few things in your leadership and also like the systems in your business.
Right. Love it. And, I think so that alone for me was like, yeah, this is a great topic. Let's talk about this, because I think it goes to say, and we'll start with the bad, right? And I think it goes to say a word we've been starting to use a lot around around strategies and around the office, especially, is this idea of some leadership fatigue, or just even, again, like, you know what I mean? A lot of the kind of approach, naysayers, whatever you want to put out there, like you were just indicating, Shelby. So what do you think, and for yourself, your own experience, what do you think puts people in a bad spot? Or how do we get there? How did you get there? Because you shared the fact that, man, I've been there. Talk to me about that, maybe from, like I said, maybe some of your own experience, but also just your observations around what do you think some of the key things are that get us into that bad kind of a position?
In general, I think it was you come into it making, let's say you're a solo artist and you're making more money than you ever had before, and it's just you and your overhead is relatively small. And then all of a sudden you open a salon, you start hiring people, and your overhead like 4 times. And then you may be struggling financially with just what is going on and how does this even make sense? I used to ask myself all the time, how is this possible if we're winning awards, that we're the best lash salon in Austin, and we have really low employee turnover, we have really high client satisfaction, stuff like that, but then we have no money. What's going on? And so it felt really discouraging. And I would say most of it was financial. And I felt like that type of stress, financial stress, dims everything. Like it totally just like puts your fire out and just makes you, it can make you feel depressed or just like, what am I doing with my life? And so for me, it started financial. And then over time, it's also just the workload, right? Like if you have way too much on your plate and you're trying to do everything, I was somebody that I felt like I have to do all of the social media. I have to do all of the admin stuff. And I wore it like a badge of honor. And when people would say stuff like, oh, wow, look at everything you do, or you're doing so much, it would make me feel like, hey, yeah, like somebody recognizes me. But then I also wasn't realizing that that exact thing was what was depleting all of my energy. So I think those two things are the biggest reasons why salon owners get discouraged. One is they have no idea financially what's going on. And two, it's just the workload. It's a lot. You are with people all the time. You have to train people. You have to make sure that they're doing the services the right way, that the customer experience is amazing. And so there's just a lot of moving parts, and it can get pretty discouraging.
Yeah, no doubt it can. And, I think that you made a statement on something that I wrote down here, because I think it's a really kind of cool observation when you said that stress, you just particularly referred to financial stress, but I'm going to cut off the financial part because I just like the idea of, and I think it's true, that stress dims everything. And I think that's a really great observation, whether it is financial stress or it is other stressors. When those things come in, it does tend to, right? It does tend to kind of dim everything, or kind of like, stress is a passion killer. It's like we're all fired up, we're all excited, but at the same time, then we turn around and it's like stresses start to come on us, and suddenly passion and all that starts to get diminished. And like I said, things start to dim, as far as that goes. I think that's a really, interesting observation. The other thing you mentioned was just that idea that in some ways, I got to do all of it, right? I've got to do all of it. So, the stress and maybe the feeling of the pressure that I have to do all of these things can put us in a bad space. Can put us in a bad space. So, what are those things don't necessarily go away. It's not like suddenly you found the magic pill per se and stress went away. But what are some of I'm interested to know a couple things, but we'll start with, what are some of the things that you would start to say started turning the corner for you? What did you start to do to help turn the corner?
Well, one observation I made, because way back when the salon first opened, there was a point when things started to get really hard financially. So I pulled out a loan. And when that money hit our account, I instantly felt like I just had life again. And I had all these ideas, and I was doing a lot of things that technically I didn't need money for, because it was just, I was jazzed up and I was doing like more, I would say free or little to no cost things inside the business, just with the extra energy I had. So it was that observation that when I started hitting that point again, um, after being debt free and everything like that, I notice when I hit this wall again, where I feel like discouraged or like things are getting stressful. And something that Robert and I literally just the other day were talking about is it's important to revisit this list of like, what is giving you energy and what is depleting you. And I almost look at it like, okay, just imagine you had all of the money and money was not an issue. What things would you do with your team and in your company today? And are any of those things free, or any of those things like very low cost? So implementing stuff like that, or trying to take away or delegate things that are draining you of energy, if you can make a list, you actually have more energy to put towards the things that give you energy. And then you're kind of left with like a surplus of energy, and things start to look brighter after that. You have kind of a pep in your step again. And then obviously, if you're changing things for the better in your company, like the experience of the people that work there or the experience of the clients that go to the business, then the side effect of those things is that your sales tend to go up, your turnover tends to be even better, and or lower, I guess. And so it's kind of just like this compounding thing that happens, but it actually starts with the leader just making sure that they're not spending their energy or resources on things that are depleting.
Right. I love that. I mean, you shared so much in there that was really, an awesome observation where it was just like, you know, soon as you felt like at that stage of the game, soon as you felt like even with a loan, it's like, okay, I suddenly don't feel that stress anymore. We probably then still probably had to cycle back around to, all right, I got to get rid of that loan, kind of thing. But what was very fascinating though is it shows that when we got rid of a stress, how things look different, and how do we tap into that more, without the I guess what I want to say is sometimes maybe without the aid of things that we don't really need,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what you're sharing is the fact that, you know, what we try to do is kind of look at things and start to say, um, if again, like you shared, if money were not an object, what would I be doing? And how many of those things would be of no cost? So let's go back to that a little bit. Obviously, you got yourself, into a much better space financially, got rid of the loan, all that good stuff, right? Got ourselves to a debt-free standpoint. Not so much interested about that. I mean, that is of interest, and maybe we'll explore that some, but I want to stay on the idea of what have you found, or what are you finding? You mentioned Robert, and for those that caught that, Robert is a coach, strategies coach at Shelby works with, just to put context. Um, what are the things that you found that when you start to look and say, with a if I don't have to worry about money kind of a thing, what is the option? Doesn't mean they don't cost money, but just kind of taking that different perspective. How many things did you find that you could do that really didn't cost anything? Was it a long list of things that were like, this doesn't cost anything? I don't need money to do that. No one needs money to do this. You can just do it.
Honestly, it was a lot of stuff. It felt like just we started put just anything that we could think of that enhanced the client's experience a little bit. And even just like meeting with the team in a different type of energy, it almost felt like they felt the positivity and excitement and all of that too. And planning out just days to learn other stuff, like new techniques or lash designs, or how to take a better lash photo. Okay, let's jazz up our Instagram a little bit. Okay, let's all post more to Instagram. And those were things that we could have already been doing. And then on the client side, we started putting like a welcome sign, a welcome Shelby, Tiffany, whoever.
Right.
to their first appointment, like that stuff is free. Putting fruit in their water, like literally all of these little ideas came from that. And it ended up that the loan was annoying because you have to pay it back. But
Darn loans.
I know. And when I'm not even against debt at this point, I used to be like, when I finally got out, I was like, I'm never doing again. But it's like, I think you just got to be really careful though, because it could actually really strain your business. Anyway, but I'm glad for the perspective that it brought. And then just the offloading of that stress that I had. I just wish it didn't take all of that to learn that lesson, but I still tap into that now every once in a while when I start feeling that same way. But yeah, there's the way that we greeted clients, even we changed that. Just talking about how, okay, everyone is going to smile at every client that you see. If you're standing close to them, make sure you actually verbally say hi. That's free. Just changing the energy in the space. And if you walk through the salon as you're a client, as if you were one, I think you just start to notice the things that in your own company you realize like, we could do this better. And it's amazing the type of shifts that happen when you lift that veil of stress and discouragement, which is actually why I want to change the narrative, because when a salon owner is coming to these podcasts or on social media, part of them is just trying to look for a solution. And then if all they're hearing is like, well, you messed up, you're a salon owner now, like it sucks, that makes them feel worse. And I think there is a way out. I think you can get to a point where it's not stressful and you have your passion back and stuff. But yeah, I think everyone means well when they say those things. I think mostly it's to tell people, hey, be careful doing things, going into salon ownership that you may not realize can cost you a lot of money, or make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, etc. But I think it's just gotten a little out of hand. Everyone's really dogging salon owners right now.
Right. So what would you say to, again, what do you say, not what would you say, what do you say to those salon owners that maybe are getting, one voice, but it's like, no, let me give you a different narrative. Um, what's your advice?
I would say if you're listening to this podcast, you're already in the right place. I felt like whenever I would go to any of y'all's seminars or anything, and I saw a salon owner there, or a hopeful salon owner, somebody that doesn't have one yet or hasn't opened yet, I would almost feel jealous, because I'd be like, God, I wish I knew about strategies before I got to this point, before I was X amount in debt. And so you're already in the right spot, but it really does require you to like dig deep. Sometimes you hit this point where it feels like, should you be doing this anymore? Is it worth it? I promise you that you kind of just need to put your head down and like, I always imagine in my head when I feel this way, when I hit these walls, that I'm almost just like jogging, and then I'm like, okay, let's push through. And then I just start sprinting. And in my head, I'm like, I just got to like go harder and actually make changes. And I think it starts with you as the leader. So I think it's totally possible. I actually found a lot of benefit from working on my leadership style too. And it really just changed the whole vibe of the salon. And that's like a big compliment that we get, is that the vibe and the energy is really nice here. And I think that matters for the people that work inside of the company too. But all that it's done, working on myself, has just given the business and myself just benefit only. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Nice.
Is you can make it work.
Absolutely. I think that, you brought up the idea that we often hear this, and I think we we become kind of numb to it, that, you know, these little things add up to the big things. You know, everything from just the fact that you talked about some of the free things, like just how we greet people, the fact that you put, add fruit to the water, do this or do that. It feels like, oh, is that going to make a big difference? But all those things combined do make a big difference.
Mhm.
You think about, for everyone listening, think about the experiences that you have outside of your work, from where you buy groceries to to where you get gas, to the pharmacy, to the, maybe your doctor or dentist, or the restaurants that you eat at. More times than not, the experiences are average at best, and if not, other times very lackluster. And while we have some high points here and there, in through that, I guess the key to remember is, it doesn't take, you didn't expect, here's what you didn't say to yourself. All you expected was, man, does no one say hello anymore? Does no one look you in the eye anymore? Can they not just clean up a little bit? Whatever. You made an assessment, but I guarantee you almost every assessment that you make is something that is very, very small, but has a big difference. Like, you didn't go, you don't kind of think about these big thing, they aren't the big extravagant items that you're recognizing and that you're citing. You're probably citing small little things that anyone could change, but most businesses don't. And that's the difference, right? Doing what needs to get done, in a way, you can say it that way. But I like that. I like that realization, and where you are. When it comes to owning a business right now, um, you know, again, first question is, how many team members do you have right now?
10.
Okay. Only 10? Come on, Shelby. So no, 10. Listen, that's a lot of brains out there. And I say that in a kind way, because with a lot of brains, we get lots of ideas. And
Mhm.
sometimes the ideas are ideas to go to the left, and other people's ideas is go to the right. And some is, let's go this way or let's go that way. So let me ask you on that question then, what do you see as, right now with 10 team members, what do you see as the biggest challenge right now, as a business owner yourself? What do you see as the biggest challenge?
Trying to make sure everyone stays engaged, and I think there's so many different. I feel like this is another narrative that happens a lot too. Is like, oh, I work with all women, and some people kind of say stuff like about how everyone's emotional or stuff like that. But I tend to more empathize with that because I am a woman too, and if I notice someone's a little bit more sharp that day, I might just say like, "Hey, are you okay?" But I'm not going to completely just write them off as a person and get rude back at them or something like that. I would say the most challenging thing is not anything to do with how many people there are, or just all of the different personalities. It's more just like trying to keep everyone engaged and like motivated. I feel like that's my job, to just keep it all going and keep the machine running. And sometimes that feels a little challenging at times, because it feels like I kind of always have to be on, and I always have to be the pepper upper. And I feel like back in the day I used to almost complain to them, and now I will just do that outside of work instead of bringing that to them. So that's some things that have changed. I also feel like I've changed the way that I handle conflict, or just, yeah, handle things with them, because I think we set the tone for stuff, and we can de-escalate things. And yeah, so hope that answers that.
No, it does. It does. Um, talk to me about, I think that communication is such a crucial part, and we've seen this come up more, and it always has been, but I think we have a greater awareness of it more now than almost ever in a way. Um, where do you focus most of your communication energy? Like, I guess what I want to say is, let me try and ask this, um, in the way that I mean it. I guess I'm not necessarily, and again, if the answer is we focus on the huddle or we focus on one-on-ones or something like that's fine. That's a good answer, and I'm all right with that answer. But it doesn't need. I'm not looking necessarily for that answer as much as to say, where are you putting your energy around communication, and what do you find that your team really wants to know, um, that's helpful to them?
I actually feel like the most time I feel connected and engaged with each one of them is in our passing conversations, or like maybe they're just coming in for the day and we happen to just be alone together, checking in with them in that way. And sometimes even just they might be going through something in their personal life that they'll share, and it just gives you perspective of like, hey, this person just needs a little more softness today and no judgment. Not that they're bringing that to the client or anything, but if they're a little more quiet or something. And yeah, I feel like those off times where it's not necessarily a structured, planned thing, because those tend to be more about the business and not just personal. Not to say that we're like having therapy sessions before work or something, but just a connection.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. What was the other part of your question?
And well, I forget because I was thinking about my next thing I wanted to say.
No,
I
I forgot.
forgot my darn second half of that question. We'll find it.
Yeah.
We'll find it. What in communication, what do you think most people are, and I think this actually was the second part. What do you think most people are desiring to know?
Ooh, okay. I think that they want to know how they're doing, and honestly how they're doing. If I would find sometimes like in meetings, I would address the whole group if something went wrong and just say, hey, well, I got this feedback from a client. One of you guys did this. And I just felt like, well, everyone should just watch out for stuff like that then, right? Like everyone should just think, oh, I should work on that. But actually what it did is it just made everyone anxious. And so I'd get these like one-off conversations after that. People would ask, hey, was that my client? And I'd say, oh, no, sorry. And it almost just, I realized I actually just need to be direct and as soon as possible, just say, hey, like this happened, this came up. So I feel like that is one thing. They want to know how they're doing. They also want to know how the business is doing too. I think being more transparent about where our money goes, maybe not exactly the dollar amount, but the percentage of something. I did a meeting with them where I really just shared, like, it was very transparent about all of the financials. Robert helped me with that, and just showing that was probably the most well-received meeting I've ever had to date, because almost every single one of them came up and said how much they loved seeing that side of everything. Whereas before I kind of felt like they either don't care or like that might not interest them at all. But yeah, I had the opposite experience. So I think I just want to know the health of the business, and also just if they need to work on anything
Right.
or if they're doing well too.
Right. Well, I think that goes back to, that's something we've been talking a lot about, and it absolutely supports everything that we're seeing and hearing, is the fact that, again, people just want clarity
Mm.
for themselves, meaning that they want to know how they're doing, and again, I don't think people are looking for sugarcoating. They're just looking for you said it, like they just want to know honestly how they're doing, because everyone knows. We would say it about ourselves. that I know everything's not perfect. I know I can do things better. I just need someone to help me to understand where those areas of opportunity are.
Mhm.
And so I think that's very important, to give people clarity, as you just kind of pointed out. And again, they want that, their desire is there for that. And I think it's also very fascinating the fact that you shared, it was like, when I got them more educated about the business, you shared from a hey, here's what's going on from an expense standpoint and whatnot, and just gave them knowledge. Again, we didn't have to, use whatever level of detail you wanted, but I think you made a great point in saying it doesn't have to be every nickel, every dime, every, you know, every bit, but an overview and a very good sense of what happens in our business gives them more knowledge. And now they feel, I think, like, okay, I have more ways that I can understand my role in impacting this. I don't know. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah. Also, it's I think when, let's just say you are dealing with someone, you probably know someone in your life right now that they're just always the same way. They're always like, everything's fine, always a smile on their face. Sometimes I can't trust that type of person over somebody that's just honest about, you don't have to dump on anyone, but the being able to tell them how the business is doing or their work is doing or their service is doing in an honest way and just kind of a neutral way, um, helps build trust. And so they know that when you say that was great, they believe you that they did great. And then it feels good to them, not like, oh God, like, what did I do wrong? She said that was great, you know? Um,
Right.
and so
What did I do wrong? It was great.
um, but I think for the business stuff, they just knowing, hey, we could do better here, or here's how much better we could be doing in this area, that really helps. That's a free way again to like help promote the, you know, rallying everybody together and moving towards a goal.
Right. I'm interested with how when you have to have a conversation, when you have a conversation with someone, uh, for good, or we'll say for, I guess I'll say for bad. But let's say we got to give someone some feedback that might be negative, or we got to give someone some feedback that could be a positive.
Mhm.
How do you approach your communication? Because I think I think that's where a lot of people struggle, and might be just helpful to be like, I wonder how Shelby, as I listen, I wonder how Shelby approaches
Yeah.
a negative conversation or a tough conversation.
Yeah.
And also be interested to hear how you approach a positive, or how you give
Mhm.
out positive as well.
Well, I'll be honest, I feel like I could do better on the positive ones, like praising when something went right. Like one-on-one, I feel like I do it a lot in meetings, but I feel like I could do it better one-on-one. But for, let's say, something, we got a call from a client and we need to talk to the artist about it. Um, I obviously just pull them aside and I'll ask them what they thought about it. So I'll say, hey, we got a call from so and so. Can you tell me about her appointment? And I think asking that question first versus saying what the complaint was, I I feel like that's a better way to go about it versus just saying, hey, this person said this, because I've done that before. And then I felt like when I got the whole picture, I started to realize, okay, well, I probably should have asked first what your thoughts were before just going straight, into that. But yeah, so I first just open the floor, I let them tell me everything, and then we just talk about like how we could change it for next time. And I usually just try to handle it with the client myself, and apologize on behalf of everyone. And then I just let them know, like I give them a follow-up. Hey, she's totally fine. She's going to come back in. Everything's great. Next time, let's handle it like this. And almost always there's no anxiety around it. I feel like sometimes I would put off those conversations because I was like nervous or whatever that was. It's just uncomfortable. But I just started doing it more often and just giving them the space to say what, they thought. And then also asking, would you do anything different next time? That helps too.
Right. Love it. So again, just creating a safe environment
Mm-hmm.
to hear, and and then let's acknowledge where we are and what we could have done, and I love it. So good stuff. I want to talk a little bit about, because this has come up again, this always seems to come up. But I'm interested to know uh generational, right? This is always one of those buzzword things too. It's like, oh, this generation, and every generation gets labeled in a way by the older generation that is a negative, right? It never is the kind of thing where whatever generation follows you, it's never like, oh, this is such a great generation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always like what's different about it, which becomes something negative. Obviously, I'm sure out of 10 people and whatnot, you have a variety of generation in your, in your business probably, and whatnot. What do you see? What is your makeup? Like most people, like, out
We
of
got
10 are like all under 30, or what's your makeup?
We've got, I would say more than half in our 30s and then a couple of 20 somethings.
Okay.
So I have noticed, when everyone says no one wants to work anymore, people are entitled and stuff like that. I personally think that maybe some people may not want to work with you. But not necessarily that they don't want to work. But I do sort of see where that is coming from, just because we talk a lot lately about, as a society, about mental health and boundaries and all of that stuff. I think you can be a business owner with boundaries yourself and expectations yourself, and you can just make it clear that, if someone is going to be calling out all of the time because they need space and whatever for whatever they need in their heart, then maybe it's not a good fit. But I don't know. I feel like that doesn't happen for us very often, because I think I give my expectations and standards and boundaries too. But I do feel like there's that conversation out a lot. I don't necessarily know what to say to that though. I can see a little bit where it's coming from, but I also feel like usually you can look at how the environment of your space and just kind of do a check and just see if anything is worth looking at. I try to, if anyone ever criticizes me, yeah, it stings a little bit, but I try to look at that, like, is there any truth to that? Maybe there's a little bit, and you can act from that. But I don't know. Do you find that in a lot of your salons that you guys coach, that y'all have that problem of people maybe not wanting to work or something like
Well,
that?
I think that what's interesting is, you said something which is really quite awesome, actually, when you said, oh, the people say, oh, no one wants to work. Well, maybe they just don't want to work for you.
Yeah.
And, I think that holds a lot of truth. And I think that, this whole idea of, I think we need to be, I think this is a matter of, we tell the stories that we interpret things the way we believe that they are being said through our lens. And I don't know that that lens is always accurate.
Mhm.
And so, in regard to that idea of, oh, you can't get people to work, or they want flexibility or whatnot, we immediately, when the word flexibility comes up, we immediately attribute that to people maybe not wanting to work, or they want to set their own schedule. And I think I don't know that I think that's the case. I think flexibility just means that, people that want flexibility just means they want to have the freedom to look at challenges from a different perspective, or try different things to achieve the result that we are hoping for. So, I think we need to be careful as to, as business leaders. I think we just need to be careful about putting our definition to what they are saying. And I think that's the, part of the biggest challenge.
Well, and people can ask for like weekends off or evenings off or something. It doesn't mean you have to do it. You could maybe compromise a little. Like, what if everyone worked there 2 weekends a month and that's just part of your culture where everyone who works there gets off like 2 Saturdays a month? That sounds like a perk to me. It doesn't need to be made as we label people a certain way or get miffed about it. Just, can you make that work? If not, then that's just not the right place that person works. And
right.
I don't know.
I think I think that right there, I think that's a great point, is the fact that, you can't, you can't pull the old, no one, they might come and say, well, I'd like X, Y, or Z. And if you say yes, or you agree to it, you also then don't have the right anymore to complain about it. You don't have the right to say they don't want to work in the right. You had the ability when it was the requested to be either that fits our schedule, or that doesn't fit what we're about. It doesn't, you don't get the right to go, all right, fine, you can work this, Shelby. And then for Michael to turn around and be like, and complain about Shelby's work schedule. It's like, well, you're the one that said, you gave the sign off on it. You said it was okay. So I think that's a very interesting, you said that a couple times through through this conversation, I think is really resonates, is the fact that, ultimately you still control, the leader still controls, the makeup of the business.
Yes.
And, those decisions about scheduling or any other, you're still the one that has the final stamp of approval or not on those areas. So I think that's a great realization, that, because if not, right, and we just accept some of these things that we know we don't want for a business, where does that put us back to? It goes back to what we started at the beginning of this, goes back to that word stress. Puts a stress on us in other ways, but a stress that then what? Diminishes everything. Like I said, you did a great, that was just awesome. That just dims our view of things, or dims our excitement, dims our joy, whatever you want to say, but it diminishes that. And I think that's it, I think that's powerful, as far as that goes. So very cool.
Yeah.
Very, as we start to kind of wrap things up here with this particular podcast, what do you find is, for you, what's the one thing that keeps you centered?
I think awareness and observation versus going straight to like worst case scenario and judgment and stuff like that. If even yourself. And I know that's easier said than done, but when I brought up the conversation I had with Robert recently, it was actually after the summit. I felt like, off of that high, I came back to work and there were some things that were extra apparent that I did not like doing anymore. And he's like, well, have you made like a energy draining versus giving list? And I feel like I've done that several times in my career, but at times it's like, oh, this isn't something I can delegate right now. And just over time, like more and more things get taken off your plate so that you have the energy still for what is giving you energy. And yeah, I think doing that is kind of a gift to my business and to myself, because you can't do it all. And if you're trying to, it's actually harmful to people that you're working with and the business as a whole. So I think just being aware of like, oh, I'm feeling like this. What is that coming from? And not trying to judge it as, well, I guess I'm lazy, or I guess salon ownership isn't for me, or whatever it is. It's like, hey, maybe you just don't like doing that thing, but these things over here do bring you joy and passion. So is there a way that you can make it more of the passionate stuff and the joyful stuff and less of the stressful stuff? Because that only helps all of the people you work with, the vibe of the whole place, gives you motivation to kind of keep leading people in the right direction. So hopefully that answered that.
I love it. So what's next on the Shelby World Tour Domination? What's the next? What are you looking for? What's your next challenge or hurdle that you're looking to overcome? Maybe at your existing business or through the school or whatever. What's your next thing?
Next thing, I've actually just launched a store. So we have kind of like a Sephora for lash artists now that we just went online with. So we carry like all of the brands, the top brands in the lash industry, so you can shop it all in one place. So that's got me really excited. And also I just launched Lash Boss Retreats. So it's not just for lash artists, but basically anyone who is a solopreneur or a salon owner. It's a place where we can kind of combine wellness, sightseeing, and business workshops all in one, 4 to 5 day trip in places like Greece, Italy, London, stuff like that. So yeah, that's my next thing, is kind of just tying things that I'm passionate about all together.
Well, I need to know where to sign up for such things. So, I'm going to have to check this out. So if we did want to track you down in any way, shape, or form, where's the best places to stalk you and find out more?
My Instagram is Shelby the Lash Boss, and my website is lashbossradio.com, and that is like a hub for all of the different
everything
things.
Else.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So lashbossradio.com.
Yes.
Check it out for all things good with Shelby and life in general. Shelby, this has been awesome. Again, no secret why that we had to do this twice, and we'll probably definitely have to do this a third time for sure. But this has been great. And again, for everyone listening, I think that, like I said, I love the heart that I think we were all able to pick up on. And I hope some of these things just resonated with those that are listening, just from the standpoint of, like, all right, just that what stress does to us. I love that, how it diminishes. That was said early on. But then also just even close to the end, it just is like, hey, being true to what is right for your business, and, staying the course with that is what leads to the culture that you want to have and to build. And don't forget, the little things mean lots of things. And those little things add up to big stuff. So this has been great. Shelby, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. Well, everyone, thanks again for listening. And we will absolutely look forward to talking to you on our next podcast. But between now and then, have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again for listening to the Beauty Business Strategies podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to hit follow, and please share the episode link with anyone who you think could benefit from today's content. To learn more about how strategies can help create more fun, profit, and growth potential for you, your company, and your team, we invite you to schedule a free 60-minute strategy session by clicking the direct link in the description of this episode. There you'll also find links to our wide array of coaching, seminar, and learning opportunities, all of which can be found at strategies.com.